Around March 2003, I was happy. It's so strange to think that I was once happy. I'm not happy anymore. It was spring break for 3 whole weeks. Imagine doing that in the age of COVID-19. My mom, my dad, my older sister, and her meat-headed boyfriend and I went to the great state of Tennessee to spend our spring break there. We were going to sleep in a cabin. When we got to the log cabin, it looked so cool and awesome, like something Abraham Lincoln would have stayed in, my personal hero. My mom and dad slept downstairs next to my older sister in her boyfriend's room. I slept upstairs, which had a bathroom next to me, and that was just amazing. There was only one thing that I ever wanted in my entire life, and it was my very own bathroom. This was like a personal dream come true. My mom and dad went to Burger King to get us something to eat, but odds are they actually just left to get away from me. Who could blame them? As the food came, I ran upstairs to eat in my room, which is how I got ants. I was looking for a movie to watch, and there were 30 VHS tapes with no cases. Finally, I found a VHS with no label on the tape, but there was writing on the bottom. It said Blue's Clues on the tape. Now, why the hell did they write on the tape instead of get a sticker and just write on a sticker? Oh, whatever, who cares? I was happy that I found a Blue's Clues VHS tape. Blue's Clues, my favorite show. By the way, I'm 45 years old. Blue's Clues is the best show on Nick Jr., along with the Upside Down Show, Max and Ruby, Lazy Town, Dora the Explorer, and David the Gnome. I popped the VHS into the player, and the screen was black for about a minute. Finally, the Paramount logo came on, and as it came on, the fanfare did too, and it was the most amazing thing ever. But that's when things turned for the worse. When the Nick Jr. logo came on, it just seemed crazy. The Nick and the Jr. were looking depressed. The Nick put the Jr. on a noose, and the Jr. swung back and forth for like a minute. This was really disturbing. Finally, the Nick Jr. face came on. He looked strange and talked in a sarcastic Generation X kind of voice. Hey there, face here, blah, blah, blah. Are you ready to watch Blue's Clues? Great. By the way, don't worry about the noose thing. That was a midget. That wasn't a child, and who gives a shit? All right, now let's watch Blue's Clues. Here on Nick Jr. I kind of wanted to turn the tape off at that point, but still, it was Blue's Clues, so it wasn't like I could say no. The episode came on. The episode started slightly differently. First, there was no music playing at all, and the little yellow book did not say Blue's Clues. Instead, it just said Blue. There was no one outside, and the camera zoomed at the door, which just opened by itself, as if it was opened by a ghost. There was no one in the living room either. No one saying hello. The camera panned to the left and showed Blue sitting on a brown desk. She had a sad look on her face. Steve was passing by. He looked at the camera. I don't know what's gotten into Blue. He shrugged and went into his room. What if he was so concerned? Why didn't he bother to check up on her? Blue must have felt the same way. She let out a long sigh and a tear streamed down her face. She gripped and grabbed the pencil and started writing on a piece of paper. She talked like a human instead of barking. I can't take this anymore. I loved everyone in this house, but the truth is, I can't play Blue's Clues anymore. Mr. Salt, Mrs. Pepper, Paprika, they make good food most of the time, and Mailbox's jokes, they're still funny. Everyone else is always a good friend of mine, and Steve is always fun, but nowadays he's dating Miranda. They always go on dates and leave me and Magenta behind, just playing around the house. That's why I'm not playing Blue's Clues anymore. Goodbye. Blue held a container that said potassium cyanide. A shiver went down my spine. Oh no, could it be? Well, no, it wasn't actually. She took the container and tossed it out the window. "Psych!" she said. She went upstairs and grabbed what looked like a piñata stick. She made one of those things that hobos have where they tie it around the stick because that's their only belongings. Was she going to become homeless? It was no use. No one could stop her now, and in fact, no one seemed to care. She went out the doggy door and she was gone. The next scene showed a title card saying, "On Sunday." Everyone gathered around and they were talking about Blue. Blue was always a good friend. She was cute, funny, nice, said Steve. Everyone said goodbye to Blue. It didn't make any sense. Why didn't they care when she was actually among them? The next scene cuts to a time card saying 5 days later. It cuts to Steve reading the newspaper when he heard a knock on the door. It was Miranda. She sat on Steve's lap. "It's sad that Blue ran away," said Miranda. "Yeah, it was," said Steve. "And it's even sadder that the police didn't even care." They were kissing, but Mr. Salt came in the scene. "Hey, Steve, Mrs. Pepper, Paprika, and we're going to go on vacation. We'll be back in about 3 months." "Okay," said Steve. He and Miranda kept on kissing as if they didn't give a shit. The screen stayed black and white for a while. I was about to eject the VHS, because I was sick of watching these two kissing. Ugh. Then it faded just to white and read 3 days later. It showed Tickety Talk in the bedroom. She was trying to look for Steve until she noticed some clothes were on the floor. She found some people that were Steve's age. They were men and women outside of the house. "They look nudity!" screamed Tickety Talk. She found Steve and Miranda talking and kissing and doing some things that I don't want to say here. Tickety ended up puking all over the floor, and the picture ended with a distorted static and went to pitch black. The episode ended. There weren't any end credits. None. Not on this VHS whatsoever. The VHS came out fully unrewound, and I just was so done. I got done eating my food. I took a nap after that. It was the nuttiest thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. I was just in my room, just feeling confused about the episode. I called Tracy Page Johnson and asked her about the episode. "Hello, can I help you?" said Miss Johnson. "Hi, do you know a Blue's Clues episode called Blue Suicide?" She was quiet for a second. Yeah, the one that doesn't actually have a suicide in it. Me and my friends made that episode because there was a person who just loves that kind of stuff, and also they wanted to see Steve naked. Okay, but I think the episode is strange," I said. For some reason, there was no answer. Didn't sound like she hung up. But then a strange voice was heard on the other end. "I killed her. Now I'm going to get you, Derek." "What the hell?" I suddenly ran out of the room. I hid in a large cardboard box so the scary voice would not be looking for me. It hasn't found me yet. Listen, if you ever come across a VHS that says Blue Suicide, do not watch it, or it will make you sick as a dog.